My name is Ori, and since I was a kid, I've always been curious about how things work, especially big machines and power stations. Today, I want to share with you the story of how I learned about creating energy from coal, a journey that began during one unforgettable visit to an old coal-fired power plant. I grew up in a small industrial town where you could always see a distant cloud of steam rising from the chimneys of the local power station. My father used to call it the heart of the city because it supplied electricity to homes, factories, and schools. To me, it looked mysterious, huge, silent from far away, yet full of hidden power. As I grew older, my curiosity turned into a desire to understand what happened inside. One summer, my father arranged a tour for me at the coal power plant where he used to work. The moment we arrived, I realized I was stepping into an enormous world. Long conveyor belts stretched across the yard, carrying dark chunks of coal toward enormous buildings. Towering chimneys reached into the sky, releasing water vapor that floated like clouds. Today, my father said, placing a hard hat on my head, you'll see how a simple rock can light up a whole city. Our guide, Ms. Carter, was a senior engineer who had worked there for more than 20 years. She welcomed us warmly and began explaining the basics as we walked through the facility. Coal is ancient, she said. It was formed millions of years ago from dead plants buried under pressure. Nature compressed those plants into carbon-rich rock. I imagine forests buried in time, slowly turning into the black stones now carried on the endless belts around us. Our first stop was the coal yard, where mountains of coal waited to be processed. Bulldozers moved across the ground like tiny insects against the massive piles. From here, coal was fed onto conveyor belts that carried it into the power station. Inside, the air was warm, vibrating with the quiet thunder of machines working nonstop. Miss Carter guided us to the pulverizer room, where the real transformation began. Large steel mills crushed the coal into a fine powder almost like black flour. Powdered coal burns much faster than solid chunks, she explained. It releases energy quickly and efficiently. I watched the rotating mills turn the hard coal into soft dust, and felt amazed that something so tough could become something so light. Next, we entered the boiler hall, the heart of the plant. The boiler towered above us like a giant metal cathedral. Inside it, powdered coal was blown into a combustion chamber, where it ignited instantly. Bright flames roared within, generating intense heat. This is where coal becomes energy, Ms. Carter said. The heat from burning coal turns water into high-pressure steam. We followed her up several metal staircases and reached a platform overlooking a maze of insulated pipes. Inside these pipes rushed the powerful steam created by the burning coal. The steam was then directed toward the turbine, a massive machine with blades arranged like a giant fan. As the steam hit the turbine blades, they spun rapidly, converting heat energy into mechanical energy. The turbine was connected to a generator, which produced electricity as it rotated. It's like bicycle pedals, Ms. Carter said with a smile. Except instead of legs turning the wheels, it's steam turning the turbine. And instead of moving a bike, it generates electricity. When the steam finished its job, it traveled into the condenser, where it cooled down and turned back into water. This water was then pumped back into the boiler, creating a continuous cycle. I was amazed at how nothing was wasted. The same water kept moving again and again. After the main tour, we visited the control room, where engineers monitored screens showing temperature, pressure, fuel use, and electricity production. It felt like the nerve center of the plant. One engineer pointed to a display showing how the plant adjusted coal usage depending on the area's energy demand. When people use more electricity, he said, we burn more coal. When demand drops, we reduce the fuel. Before leaving, Ms. Carter talked about the environmental side of coal. She explained that modern plants use filters and scrubbers to reduce emissions and capture ash before it reaches the air. Though coal is powerful, it must be used responsibly. Standing outside the plant afterward, I looked at the coal piles again. They no longer seemed like ordinary rocks. They were ancient, full of stored sunlight from forests that lived millions of years ago. When burned, that sunlight was released again as heat, turning water into steam, spinning turbines, and lighting homes. That day changed the way I saw energy forever. I used to think electricity appeared simply by flipping a switch, but now I understood the long journey behind each spark and bulb. Coal may be old, but its story is full of science, engineering, and human effort. Every time I see the glow of streetlights at night or feel warm air from a heater, I remember my visit to the plant, the rumble of machines, the bright roar of the boiler, and the countless workers ensuring that power never stops. And that is the story of how I learned about creating energy from coal, a journey of fire, steam, and ancient stone.